Good morning, everybody. This is Adrian presenting here. Hope everybody could see the slideshow up on the screen. So I'll go ahead and get started. The event today is about sales pipeline automation with Dynamics 365 for sales. So getting straight into the agenda for today. As you would see, we'll start with some slides here, some very exciting slides. Before we get to the start of the show, the actual live demonstration of the system. In this live demonstration, we'll cover lead management and qualification into opportunities. We'll show you how you manage those opportunities, how you follow through the whole entire automated sales process, and we'll show you that straight through from ordering, quotes, and invoice generation. At the end, we'll look at some dashboards. We'll cover some key takeaways, answer any questions you might have, and then we'll discuss some next steps and we have a special prize at the end with some questions that you might be able to answer if you pay attention to today's presentation. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started. Let's talk about what Dynamics 365 for sales actually is. So it is a platform built on Microsoft CRM system, and it helps you to build stronger customer relationships. It helps you manage the sales life cycle, as I mentioned, from leads all the way down to closing an invoice. It helps improve the sales team's productivity. It helps you gain actionable insights into the data, because as you would expect when you have a system like this, you collect a lot of data, and you don't want that data just sitting there. You want to see, okay, how is the team performing this month? How will they be performing in the following month? So you'll get to see how that data is actually used after it is captured in some nice dashboards, some nice visuals and graphics. And of course, one of the key things about a system like this is you want to be able to accelerate revenue growth. So some of the potential challenges an organization might face would be scattered information and siloed data across multiple systems, if any, because many systems, or should I say, many companies lack systems and a lot of things still on paper. So when you have something like that, you have no easy reporting, you have no centralized area for all of your data. Another challenge we see is persons forget to follow up, and sometimes that might lead to losing an opportunity, sometimes a big opportunity. And next thing is you have limited visibility into the sales pipeline. So as a manager, you might be managing a sales team. You have, let's say, 5 sales reps working with you. And these 5 persons might be doing their thing, but they have no insight into what the other person is doing. And the manager as well doesn't have any insight. So you'll see how you get that insight into the pipeline here and what is going on. And then finally, manual processes. So as I mentioned, paper-based stuff, a lot of organizations have that. And you'll see here with the system, we completely remove the manual work. All of it just flows into each other part of the system really well. So you'll see that. And overall, these challenges, as we mentioned, would lead to lost productivity, inconsistent experiences from the customer point of view, because one person might say they had a great experience with the organization, and next person might say, you know what, I didn't. They didn't take me on. They forget to follow up with me. And so that lost opportunity there, and that'll hinder growth of the organization overall. So this is where Dynamics 365 for sales comes in. It would help you create that centralized view of your customers, and you'd see how we manage that in the system. From your customers, you would go straight into leads and opportunities if you progress from a lead to that. And then from an opportunity, if you're ready to close the deal, you could go ahead and generate a quote from it to send to a customer. From that quote, if it is accepted, you could go ahead and create an order and then go straight down to invoicing. And then at the end, as I mentioned, the actionable insights. I'll show you some dashboards and pipelines that come configured out of the box for you. But for everything you see here today, you need to keep in mind that we could tailor it to your organization. So this is how the demonstration will go today. We'll start by covering the customers and how you interact with those, how you manage those. We'll move into the leads process. From a lead, we'll qualify it into an opportunity. We'll generate a quote and send to our customer. We would act as though the customer accepted that quote and move it into an order. And then at the end, our favorite part, we send out an invoice and we get paid. So with that said, let me go ahead and switch my screen and we'll get into the demonstration this morning. Okay, so this is a system here. Hope everybody could see this. Just a thumbs up would be nice from anybody in the chat here. Or you could raise your hand. Great, seeing a couple thumbs up there. Nice, good to go. So as you see here, I'm actually in a browser. So the entire system lives in the browser. It is on the cloud, meaning that you don't have any software to necessarily maintain yourself. You don't need to worry about too much hardware issues or anything like that. All your data as well is safe because it's backed up in Microsoft data centers around the world, and all of the data is compliant across standards in the world. So for example, in Europe, it is compliant with the GDPR rules. So I'll go ahead and walk through the system. So I'll save this dashboard here for last. This is where you'd see the insights. What I want to start with on the left-hand side here is if you see the customers area. So under customers, we have two sections. We have accounts and contacts. And you should pay attention to this because I mentioned a game with a possible prize, right? So the accounts are any organizations or entities that you do business with. This is separate from a contact. A contact is a person at that organization that you might have dealings with. So I'll click into the accounts here and show you how this is set up. So this is my accounts view. At the top here, you can see active accounts view. And a view is just a way to show you the data captured in the system. So you see I have a couple different accounts here, and I'll just click into one to show you what that would look like. So this is an account for a company called Marshall Camstall here. And you see we capture some key information. So at the top here, you have the company name, we have an ID, we have a relationship type with the customer. So you see you could categorize the customers into different categories. We have phone numbers and different pieces of information captured here for them. Email, social media information, stuff like that. And then at the bottom here, you have an address. And this address actually maps to a map in the system out of the box to give you that view of, okay, we capture an address for this customer, maybe we get it off an email. And when we plug it in here, we actually get to see where the customer is located. In the middle here, you see we have something called a timeline. So we'll get to the timeline later on and show you the usefulness of that. And then at the right-hand side here, you can see we have an area to capture contacts. So when we go to contacts, I'll show you how that will work as well. And then something to keep in mind as we go through this entire system today is that you'd see opportunities on the left, on the right-hand side here. All of the things that you do in the application is related to each other. So you won't have an opportunity that is not linked to an account or not linked to a contact, meaning that data won't really go missing in the system. Everything is building upon each other as you go through. So with that said, the real main event here is a sales process, as you could see on the left-hand side. So just before I get to that, I want to go here and cover the contacts. So a contact, as I mentioned, is a person at an organization that you might frequently talk to or interact with. And this is how one of these contact records look. So if I click into Abby at the top here, you'd see a similar layout to the accounts form that I showed you just now, except we captured different information in here. Here we capture stuff like the first name, last name. You might want to capture a position of the person at the company, an email address, and you can link the contacts to an account or a customer organization, but you don't have to. You would notice that some of the fields have a red asterisk next to it. That would indicate that the field is required. Some of them you'll see as we go through have a blue indicator next to it. That would indicate that it is recommended, but still optional. So this is how you manage contacts in the system. And just to show you how you could actually create these, edit them, and maintain them over time, I'll just click the back button at the top here, and I'll click this new button right here. And you'd see the same form that we showed just now pops up right here. So I'll go ahead and enter a new contact, and I'll do Timothy Jones. I'll enter a position. I'll say IT manager, and I'll enter an email address. Okay, and I'll leave out the account to show you that you don't need to capture that piece of information there. We have two more pieces of required information. So you have validation built into the system, as you can see there. So we need to enter a street and a city for this person. So I'll just enter a generic street name. So I'll just do number 1 street, and city, I'll do just generic again, great city. And as I'm here, I might as well enter the country. So I'll do Trinidad and Tobago. And if I go ahead and save here, we should be good to go. Save in here. If I give this a refresh, we should be good. Okay, look, my data didn't save there, so let me just do that one more time. Okay, let me enter the street one more time. Okay, so it looked like it did go through. So it was created there. Maybe my internet just a little bit slow this morning. So I'll just ignore and save this here, just to show you the creation of it. Right, and you'd see what was previously saying new contact is now saying Timothy Jones. And so my record is saved in the system. And now if I go back to this view, I could actually search for that record I created. And you'd see the records here. So I created 2, and you'd notice that it gave me a warning. That warning was because the system detected out of the box that there were duplicates in the system, and it gave me 2 options. I could either ignore this and create the additional record, or I could actually merge them into one record. I chose here to just go ahead and create 2 separate records for it, and that's why you see the 2 here. So with that said, we can now move into the sales process. So sales would start with a lead. So I'll go ahead onto the lead table here, and you can see I have 2 open leads in the system. I have a lead for Annie Quinn, and I have a lead for Anita Langers. I'll leave my open leads because I want the data in the system to show you how the dashboards at the end populate. So I'll go ahead and click new to create a lead.
Adrian, before you
Okay.
proceed, can you just go back to contacts for a bit, just to show
Yeah.
Tara how we got to the contacts page?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So Tara, when you log into the system here, you land on this as page similar to this, and all you do is click on the contacts area on the left-hand side, and it'll take you back to the contacts. Here you'd see all the existing contacts in the system. If you want to edit one, you just click into it, just like that. And if you want to create a new one, you just click new from the command bar at the top. And that'll be it. Pretty simple. Sorry, you good to go there? Okay, great. No problem. Okay, so we head back over to leads. So to go to leads, under the sales section here, we just click on the leads button. And as I mentioned, we have 2 open leads in the system that I won't touch because I want to show you how the data is populating through the different parts of the system. And so what I'll do is similar to before, and you'll notice as I go through, the system has a similar pattern where we have these forms here, we have this layout, and to create new records or edit records, we click new from the command bar at the top. So this is a form for a lead. You'd notice mostly the same, but we have an additional thing here. At the top, we have this blue bar with some stages. This bar is called a business process flow. And again, pay attention here. Might have a question at the end that might give you some points. A business process flow is something you implement to standardize business processes and guide users through said process. So as I go through, you'd see how it enforces a certain way of doing things. So at the beginning here, we start with the qualify stage. So I'll go ahead and click on qualify, and it asks me for a couple of pieces of information. The first thing we need to do for a lead is we need to identify the contact. Who were we talking to that produced this lead? So I'll go ahead here, and you'd see all of these belong to contacts already in the system. So I'll go ahead and say that we were talking to Christina. So Christina is in here, and you'd notice it happened pretty quickly, but in the background, you'd notice that the first name and last name fields of the form populated for us because it took it straight off of the contact. Next, we want to identify a company. So Christina might be related to this company here, Consolidated Messenger. So we enter that. We want to highlight a purchase time frame. Maybe we are in this quarter, so we'd enter that. We want to know our estimated budget. So maybe Christina told us they want to spend 300,000. So we'll go ahead and enter 300,000. The purchase process, maybe Christina is the person with the decision-making power in this lead. So we'll go ahead and say that the purchase process is just one individual. We did identify her as the decision maker, so we click on completed. Once we do that, before we click save at the top, we just want to enter a topic for the lead. So my system right here, I using themed around vehicles. So I'll go ahead and just enter a vehicle name, and I will enter Nissan Navara, and then I'll go ahead and click save at the top. And just like before, you would see what was previously saying new lead is now saying the person's name. So this is the person that helped us generate this lead. So a couple of things happen there. You'd see the timeline. And what I want to show you at the top right is that we have this area here. It is showing me the owner. So this is showing that I was the person that created this lead. It would show you the status. So this lead is new. And it would show you a rating for this lead, which is warm. Warm is default, but you could customize that default for your system. And then at the end, you'd see something called lead source. So what we want to do is actually update that lead source by clicking this drop down right here. And then we want to click this other drop down on lead source. And you'll see we have a couple different options out of the box. So maybe we got into contact with Christina at a trade show. So we go ahead and click trade show and we want to save. So now you'd see that the lead source is populated. And this is particularly important because you might want to track the metrics of what activities, what maybe trade shows or what events generate the most leads for you. So that way you can hone in on those and focus on those. So before I move on from the lead, because you'd see we have a couple of different stages in this process here. I want to highlight the timeline. So the timeline is an area where you could capture activities related to the record or communications. So if I click on this plus button here in the timeline, you'd see I have a couple different options that pop up. At the top, we have an appointment, but below that we have email, phone call, and task, as well as some additional stuff here. These would help you track the activities that you perform in relation to, in this case, a lead. But you probably notice this on the accounts and contacts as well. So in those cases, it would suggest that the activity is related to, if you wait in the context of an account, or a contact. So what I want to do here is actually create an email. So I'll click on timeline and I'll click on email. And on the right-hand side, it will bring up this email form for me. So this email form does actually allow me to send emails directly from the system to the customer. So you don't need to have this software up on one screen, then your Outlook or your email processor up on the next screen. You're all within this one area and could do your entire process right here. So I'll just put the email as from myself to Christina Phillip. I'll enter a subject and I'll just do following up on Nissan vehicles. And below that, I want to enter the body of the email itself. And you would see here, we have all of the rich text formatting options that you'd be accustomed to in Outlook, or maybe you use Gmail, you have that there as well. So I'll do just, hi, Christina. And this is a dummy email. I'm actually not going to send this out today. I'm just showing the features. So I'll just put test email, regards, Adrian, right? And you could see the regarding here set to Christina by default. And if I click save and close, you would see that this is tracked within the timeline here. And so communications could be tracked like that. So if I had a task to follow up, I could create it here and I'll get a reminder. And in addition to just tracking the emails that are sent out from the system, you could actually configure it to track emails that come into the system. So I want to go ahead and progress this lead to an opportunity. Let's say Christina comes back to us. She is ready to move forward some more in this process. Things looking good here. So I've seen a question here from Johan, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Yes, there are options for templates. So I'll briefly show you that before I continue the sales process. So for a template, what you could do is if you look at this button right here, you could open this record and you would see at the top open insert email template. So if I click on that button, you would see a list of templates in the system. So these are out of the box templates that we did not configure, but there is the option for you to create your own templates or upload your company templates in here. So I'll just click into one and show you what it might have suggested for us. So here you could see one that is straight out of the system, and this is what it would show here. And a cool feature about this is that it would actually plug in pieces of information for you. So like this dear part at the top here, it is using Christina's last name. And this part here where it says my name, Adrian Khan, would actually plug in the name of the person that insert in the template. And if I click apply template, you'd see it just give me a warning that it is going to overwrite my email. And you'd see here the template is inserted. So this does support images as well. And you probably notice at the top right-hand side, we have the option to insert signatures. So if you have those nice fancy company emails, company email signatures where you have images, you might have your positions and things like that, you could actually set those up in the system to automatically inject for you as well for any emails you send from this system. You also have the option to attach files as you would expect from any system. And that would be it. So that would be all of the features here you have with regards to email. So like I said, I wouldn't actually click send today, but when you want to send it out from the system, you click that send button there and it goes out. Okay, so hope that answered your question there, Johan. Going back to the sales process right here on the lead, we want to go ahead and qualify this lead into an opportunity. Like we were saying, maybe we're ready to move forward with things here. So we go ahead and click on qualify. And it would show us this pop-up here, just letting us know some key pieces of information. So this is related to this account. This is the person we're in contact with, and this is the opportunity that it is going to create. So I go ahead and click qualify. And you would see the lead has been qualified. And right now what's happening is that AI is in the background trying to give us some information related to this lead. So I'll just pause here to show you what the AI generated output was before we go ahead and click finish and move on with the opportunity. Okay, so the AI part of it in the system will become more useful as you have more data. So I'll go ahead right here and click on my opportunity to move forward. So on the left-hand side, a couple things happen. You'd see we move from leads to opportunities, and you would see that the qualify stage at the center is now saying develop. So we moved on in the sales process. And here on the develop stage, what we want to do is click on this, and we have a couple of pieces of information we could capture. We have the customer needs. So you could see here, we could type in some notes about what the customer requirement was. And we have this section here for the proposed solution. So this will be how we satisfy this opportunity here. So I'll just type in some information, customer need. So customer wants to add more vehicles to the fleet. Proposed solution. So we're proposing some Nissan Navaras here. Did we identify the stakeholders? We did. Did we identify competitors? Well, we actually didn't. So we'll actually leave that to be completed right here. And we go ahead and click save. So you see the develop stage is complete. But before I move on, I want to show you some other pieces of information that is critical to the performance of the system. So you see we budgeted an amount of 300,000 on the lead. Maybe we want to say this would turn into actual revenue of 210,000. So we capture that in here. And then at the top right-hand side, you'd see we have an estimated close date and we have an estimated revenue. So we want to enter those as well. So maybe we are in a timeline of maybe 2 weeks. So I'll go ahead and put the 2nd of July and maybe we are in revenue of, let's be optimistic and say of that 300,000, we could probably take home 220. So I'll go ahead and enter that. These as well are important, like I said, because when we go to the dashboard, you'll see how you have reporting on all of this. So this is the opportunity here. You'd notice that we have the option to add products, codes, and files. Next, I want to cover the products, as we are still in the develop stage of the opportunity, meaning that we're still creating and fleshing out this opportunity. So to add products, you want to define a price list. A price list would be ways where you would segregate your different pricing structures by channels, markets, segments, etc. So in the system, I just have two. I have the default here, so I'll go ahead and do that, and you'd see it is in Canadian dollar. But you could create different price lists to support different currencies, like I said, for different markets, etc. So I'll just go ahead and enter my default, and the revenue I'll enter as user provided, because I want to set the amounts that you see in the system here. And then we have the option to add a product. So I'll go ahead and click on add product, and it will bring up this form on the right-hand side. We have the option to either add existing products by clicking into this lookup field here that will look up for any products belonging to this price list in the system. But you'd see for this particular price list, we don't have any existing products. So what we want to do is click on this toggle button here, and it will allow us to enter in products on the fly. So I'll go ahead and enter a product. So we didn't have Nissan Navaras in this system. So I want to go ahead and enter that. Nissan Navara. And we could say our model, maybe we want to do 2025, and we want to enter the price per unit. So I believe it's 340. Don't quote me on that. And I want to enter a quantity of 1. Here we could enter any manual discounts if we wanted to, and any tax amounts. Now we will get the opportunity to adjust this later on through the different parts of the system. So I'll leave it as is for now and go ahead and click Save and Close. So when we do that, you'd see the product is entered in the subgrid here. So that's what you call these types of areas where you have lists. You call them a subgrid. And below that, you would actually see some calculations running. And like I mentioned, we would have the opportunity to enter discounts and stuff as we progress. So you can see that right here. Maybe dealing with Christina was an absolute pleasure for us. So we want to give them a 2% discount. So we want to go here, enter 2. And if we click save, that should recalculate and give us the discounted amount here. So with that, we have developed our opportunity, and now we want to actually propose this to the potential customer. So what we'll do is click and progress to the next stage, which is the propose section here. And here we want to go ahead and develop this proposal by sending a quote. So I'll click the quote button here, and I'll go ahead and click new quote. And if I do that, you'd see a couple of things running in the background. And on the left-hand side, you'd see we moved from the opportunity area into the quotes area. And on the quotes, you would notice that it pulls in all of the information that we set out on the opportunity. So you can see the product here, the detail amount, discount, etc. Importantly, you would also see shipping information, as well as a bill to address in this section on the left, and a ship to address. So the quote is a pretty cool and important feature in the system, because this is where your customers would actually see what you do in the background. They want to see what you're presenting them with. And thankfully, it is very easy to generate quotes that you'd send via email, or maybe you want to print these quotes out and deliver it to the customer. To do that, at the top, you see this export PDF button. If we are okay with this quote, we are okay with quoting one Nissan Navara at that price with this discount. Maybe we don't factor in the freight amount yet, so we leave it as is. We go ahead and click export to PDF, and it pops up this area for us here. So if you just give this a second to load on the right-hand side, you would see this is generated from a template out of the box in the system. You'd see we have the company name, we have their customer, we have sincerely, etc. But more importantly, at the bottom here, we have an ID to help us track our quotes and all of the information, all of the important information relevant to the quote itself. So you see the product, price, quantity, and total. In this system, we have just two generic templates. We have this one here, and then we have this one here. So pretty similar to before, but this one requires a bit more information to fill out. As you see with the left-hand side there, that will be the bill to information going in there. And below that, we have the products in a different grid here. We could also change the name of this file right here at the top. So I'll just leave it as code summary for now, but maybe we want to follow a particular convention we have within the company, we could go ahead and do that. Once you are satisfied with the code that you generate, you could go ahead and either download it, and you'd see it downloaded in PDF format, and I could open that up, and this is my code here. Or just like before, we could actually email directly from the system by clicking the email button here. And that would open up this area for us here, where you'd see on the right-hand side, I did mention the opportunity to add attachments. You'd see that right here. So the code is attached, and we could go ahead and draft up an email here and hit send at the top, and that would send out a code to the person. Just like before, we could insert our signature and any template that we might want to include as additional information. So I would not go ahead and send out this code. I'd actually leave it here for now and just go back to the process. So that's how you would generate a code. So let's say now we generate that code, we deliver it to the potential customer. They are happy with what they see here. They're ready to move forward. Maybe the billing information that we didn't have before, we now get back from them. So we go ahead and we enter the shipping method. So these are out of the box here. They tell us that they'll call us to tell us how to ship these items. Payment terms, out of the box, we have some here. So I'll just enter this one. Freight terms, you see it optional. So because the shipping method is to be determined, we'll leave the freight terms for now. But importantly, we want to know where to send this code to and where we need to bill to. So we enter the bill address. So I'll just do one. I'll do 2 streets since I already do 1, just to keep things moving forward in the system. I'll do Greater City and the country and region, well, Trinidad and Tobago. And we can have a bill to address that is different from our ship to address. So I'll show you that here as well. So I'll do number 3 street. And I'll do a different city. And I'll leave the country at the same thing. And we want to set when this quote is effective from. So this quote is effective from today. And maybe we have an internal policy that we want this quote to be effective for probably 2 weeks, let's say. So we'll enter a date here and we'll go ahead and click save. And that is it. That is our code created. This is our code to be sent to the customer. This is the code that they accept and ready to move forward with. So what we do here is at the top right-hand side, you would see this button saying activate quotes. We'll go ahead and click that. And just before I do, you would see here that activating a code means that it is moving out of the draft status or the in progress status. And we go ahead now to create an order based on this code. So I'll go ahead and click activate codes. And you would notice something here. You notice that the record status is active. Let me just refresh that. So the quote is now live and in the system. And you would see we didn't do any revisions to it. And if I try to edit these fields that were previously edited, I can't. That is because we locked in this code. If we wanted to edit the information on this code, we need to click the revise button, and that would open back up the code for us. And we could enter the information before we activate it again. Something important to know here is that for all of the tables in the system, you have an audit log that is available to admins that would show you all of the details and all of the fields and pieces of information that were changed, when it was changed, and who it was changed by. So you have that ability to hold the information accountable and see what happened and when things happen. I see a question in the chat here. Would reactivating the code give a new sales order? Yes, it would. So if we reactivated this code, edited it, and go to create an order, it would create that order based on our latest code. So we actually didn't create the order yet here. So we'll go ahead and do that now. So at the top, I want to go ahead and click on create order. And you would see to create this order, we want to know why we're creating this order. So at the top here, we define a status reason. I mean, if we create an order from a code, most likely we win the code. We win this opportunity. They're ready to move forward with the code. So we just leave it as 1 because that's the only status we have in here. Now, if your organization does have a different status, you could enter that in here as well, customize the system. We'll just leave the date one as today, as it is defaulted to that. We have an optional description to enter if we want. Then here we want to define whether we close on this opportunity or not. Now, it is not mandatory that you close it. You could set it to no, but for the system's consistency, it is recommended that you close the opportunity, because the opportunity was for Nissan Navara, and now we generated an order based on that, so we might as well close it. And then at the bottom here, we have this option to calculate revenue from the quote. We'll leave that as is and go ahead and click OK. So now you'd see on the left-hand side, we move from the quotes to the orders now. And as you would expect, not much would change between the quote and the order, because we don't want to quote somebody for something, and then when the actual order comes, we change it, we add additional costing and things like that. Now we definitely could, but maybe it's not ideal you want to do that. But if you do, as you can see here at the center, we still have the ability to add an additional product. We have the ability to maybe add additional discount. So that's something you could do. Maybe again, great goodwill, things going well. So I want to add a 4% discount here, double the discount from 2%. We'll go ahead and click save. And you would see that the pre-freight amount is recalculated and the total amount is recalculated to represent our 4% discount. So on this order, before we do anything else, we want to identify a shipping date. So before we had a loose date, now we actually identify the date itself, how we shipping and what we're doing. So I'll go ahead and enter that as 2 weeks out. You would see we have a date fulfilled here. So fulfillment is at a later time, but I mean, you could enter that. You could fulfill it immediately, but I'll enter all the information first before we fulfill this. Below that, you'd see the addresses, the payment terms, freight terms, etc. So the addresses will be pulled over from the quote, as that's what we enter for both the bill to address and the ship to address. And then at the right-hand side, all the way to the extreme right, we have the sales information. So as I mentioned, all of the pieces of information in this system link to each other. So this started all the way back from a lead, which was qualified into an opportunity. So you could see that here. And then this order came from a quote. And at the very top of everything is the customer it was related to. So you see that in here. So once we're okay with this order, everything looks good. What we want to do is actually go ahead and fulfill this order. So you click this button at the top here to fulfill this order. And you could enter a status here for it. Maybe we deliver the one. I mean, you can't really deliver half of a vehicle. Well, I guess you could deliver half of a vehicle, but for this example here, we deliver the whole vehicle because we're paying the whole vehicle price. Here you can see the date fulfill entered as today's date, again, automatically entered, but we could change it. And we want to go ahead and leave it as is and click on fulfill. Once we fulfill this order, you notice that at the top, it says read only, the record status is fulfilled. So after you fulfill an order, as you see here on the information here, we can't edit anything at this point. It is closed and that is it, because we fulfill the order. So there should be no reason to be editing it after we fulfill it. However, if we marked it as fulfilled and something happened, maybe something fall through, we still have the option at the top here to cancel the order. But for the sake of the demo, I won't cancel the order. I'll actually go ahead and generate an invoice for this order by clicking Create Invoice. When we do click Create Invoice, you'd see here, just as you might have expected at this point, all of the information from the order, which was there from the code, is pulled across. So you see the total amount, shipping dates, etc., bill to, ship to address. You notice that we need to enter the shipping date again because maybe it might have changed. So we go ahead and just enter the same date that we had and the due date, same date. We go ahead and click on save. And so our invoice is ready here. So this would be for internal tracking, these invoices. And once we do realize that, hey, we did get the payment from the customer, we could close off this invoice by simply clicking at the top here, invoice paid. Once we do click that, here we have the status again. We want to indicate whether the invoice was completely paid or partially paid. For the sake of this demo, we'll go ahead and click completely paid. And that would be it. You see the invoice is closed with a status of paid, and we can no longer edit the field. And that would complete the sales process. So I took you from accounts, contacts, leads, opportunities, we went through a quote, an order, and an invoice. As I mentioned a couple times at the beginning, we did generate lots of data as we went through each piece of this process. So the last thing I have to show you here today is actually these dashboards that you see here. So if I click on dashboard, you'd see here something called a sales dashboard. And these could be very customizable. This is just the one that we have to show you here today. So at the very top, we have activities. So those activities would be like the emails that you saw me draft up and send. Here we have a list of open opportunities in the system. So that way at a glance, we don't forget about any opportunities. On the right-hand side, we have any open leads, again, so that we have proper visibility onto what is going on in the system. And if you are a manager, you could actually see everyone's opportunities, or maybe you just want to see as a salesperson your own opportunities. It could be customized like that as well. Below that, you would see on the left-hand side, we have our list of active clients. So this will be the most active clients in the system. Next to that, we have a nice little visual there showing all of the opportunities at the different stages in the sales process. So we have one in the qualification stage. If you remember, as we went from lead to opportunity, we had some different stages at the top. So you see all of the different ones tracked through here. So we have one in qualify, we have a couple here as we go through, all broken out by color, and you could see the potential revenue amount on the right-hand side. And then on the last pane, on the extreme right, we have top customers here, and this will be opportunities that I closed in the current fiscal year. So for this company, Consolidated Messenger, which was the one we just closed and just invoiced at 220,000, you'd see it here. And then we have another one here for 119,000 that was closed in this fiscal period here that you would define based on your system. So that would take us to the end of the demo. I do have one more slide that I want to mention. So I'll do that briefly and a couple of things before we close off here from the demo perspective and we open up for any questions. Let me just finish my slides. Okay. So let me go to the last few slides that I had prepared for you here. So key takeaways from this solution that you saw here. We went through a standardized sales process all the way from a lead to an invoice. We saw how we could increase the productivity of the team by having everything guided and having everything standardized. We saw with the dashboards, the increase in visibility of everything going on in the system, how we could see our revenue pitched up on some nice visuals. We saw the customer engagement within the system through the timeline and the emails that we could send. We saw that out of the box, we could generate PDFs for quotes. And just to mention something I didn't there earlier, is that we could actually customize those and include your company branding. Maybe you have a nice watermark you want to throw up at the top or maybe in the background. Those are things we could do in the system. And overall, the system with the dashboards and all the things that you see going on there would help the team perform better. It will help the decision makers make better decisions because all of the information is captured there in real time. The dashboards updated in real time. And that would be it. As you can see, though, we have a lot more in the system we could cover, but time is limited, so we wanted to show the key features here. And if you are interested, you could book a call with us and we could follow up with you on that. So before I wrap up here, though, we do have something special coming up on August the 6th. We have our app in a day with Davin. This would show you how you could actually build systems similar to these yourself. It is a free event, and it would be an all-day event. As you can see the time in there. So for any interested persons, we'll be setting up for this soon. So you could reach out to us or we'll reach out to you and you could get locked in on this and see how to become a developer yourself.